Let's talk about Detroit for a second because when I saw them in the offseason pick up Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr., I was like, well, that's nice. That's like a fun, some veteran leadership and like some shooting, which they need desperately because they can't draft guys that can shoot particularly well. But I didn't expect it to turn into a 6 game series with New York, and like probably a series where Detroit could have easily come away and won that series. What do you think they have planned this offseason? Are they thinking about patience the same way that Houston is? Or is this another tweak situation in the offseason more?
So Detroit is one team that could, depending on options and guarantees and stuff, they could, I believe, get around $22 million in cap space. So it would be interesting if they decide to be like, all right, we're going to be one team out here after a big run, like you're saying, that, we just talked about Steven Adams commanding the mid-level from places. Like, they're going to be only two teams that can offer above that number. So if you just put 20 million on the table, you're probably going to get your guy. It's an interesting opportunity for them. However, I do think that they're going to largely split that money up and reward those veterans that you mentioned, the Tobiases, the Malik Beasleys, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder was going to be dealt to Utah, waived, bought out, whatever, and like on a vet minimum deal and maybe kind of chasing minimum salary for the rest of his career. But Detroit worked with his representation to get him to the Pistons, and it worked out so well. I definitely would think there'll be some opportunity to bring him back. So I don't think the Pistons are going to rush this thing. I mean, the biggest thing with Detroit is Jalen Duren is going to be extension eligible. He is not someone that Trajan Langdon's front office drafted, and he's not Cade Cunningham. So that just naturally leaves the door open for questions to be asked. And, there's a chance that he's not exactly the type of center that group wants, but it worked so well this year. I spent a little bit of time around Detroit. I was at games 1 through 3 of that series, and then I never got back to that series just with life and other travel happening. But Duren clearly is a glue guy. Like, he's not the veteran leader, professionalism, I wear my hard hat, follow my lead, like Tobias Harris is. But from like a goofy personality, connectivity standpoint, while also being a force when he's locked in and healthy and active, I don't know if they'd be able to lose him and what that would do to that, upward trajectory of this group right now. But yeah, they are very formidable, and like they did exactly kind of to New York almost identically to what Houston did to Golden State. And I don't think that was a fluke. I don't think we're going to, I mean, things could happen, injuries, what have you, but I'm not expecting the Pistons to like fall back down to the 10 seed and they're, stuck in the play-in tournament next year. I think this is a team that's kind of like Indiana before them, cemented themselves as a new perennial playoff threat in this conference, just because how good Cade is and what the other pieces behind him have turned into.
Yeah, and we didn't even see Isaiah Stewart really at full force either. He was sidelined for,
No
I
Jaden
think,
Ivey.
pretty much. Yeah, no Jaden Ivey either. So two really important players that when they get fully healthy, we'll be able to see them also. What do you make of this Lakers roster? Because LeBron does the thing that LeBron does every year, which is put pressure on GMs in the front office to get him more help. Says I'm not taking a pay cut. Says I'm not sure if I'm retiring. And I think that MCL injury was real, but every year, right at the end of the season, we get a new LeBron James injury. It's a tale as old as time. Now he has Luka, and he's also now saying I'm not going to even pitch Luka to stay. Luka should just make his decisions without me. They obviously lack a center. Maybe that's a Steven Adams. What do you think they need to do to get to the place where they can achieve what the goal is that LeBron has pretty much at the end of his career, which is like actual title contention?
And they definitely need a starting level center on this team. I clearly A lot of what I do is taking the data points that teams show us the previous transaction cycle. And the Lakers literally played a card and then picked it back up. They went out and got a bouncy, young rim, traditional rim running lob threat. So, and that's what Luka likes to play with. So, if they are really focusing on that, which I think they're going to, he's going to be eligible for a contract extension, and you're going to want to show loyalty and commitment to this guy. That's what they're going to do. And they've already, from my understanding, very quickly after acquiring him, went and met with his people and talked about the types of big men and teammates he'd want to play with. And that was kind of a precursor to going out and trading for Mark Williams, which didn't work out. And he was posting funny memes on Instagram about them losing. But that type of guy, I think, is probably where they're going to try to, but those guys don't grow on trees. Like, how many 23-year-old kind of franchise centers are actually going to be available for trade? Like the Walker Kesslers that, the Lakers have been linked to forever. Utah hasn't really wanted to actually move them, even though they have listened. So right now, I don't know who that guy is going to be. They might just be best served by plugging and playing some veteran types. Like they were in on Jonas Valanciunas last year's free agency before he signed with Washington, and they talked about trading for him during the season as well. Like, do they just kind of plug the gaps with some veterans in the meantime if they don't have that, long-term partner that they see for Luka available? Maybe. But I think just generally they need front court depth and they need shooting and two-way shooting. Like that's what Luka needs around him, and this roster didn't have that in spades, especially when Reeves and LeBron are not playing at peak capacity. If so many of your possessions are relying on Rui Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith, who are both good shooters, but to knock down jump shots, how great is the brilliance of those three playmakers anyway? So they'll need, I think, more guys like that to also keep those guys fresh throughout an 82 game season and like have two of them on the floor, not necessarily three of them on the floor and that kind of stuff. So yeah, wing work and big men, I think, will definitely be top of the shopping list for Rob Pelinka's crew.
Right before we let you go, because I know you've got a hot date.
You said
let's
that.
Let's play a quick little scenario hypothetical, because I have so much I wanted to get to you, but I think this is a great way to cap it off. So we've got the draft lottery coming up, and everybody's looking to get Cooper Flagg, right? Who, in your estimation, if they get the number 1 overall pick, will make the biggest ripple in the NBA?
I mean, it's a great question. I think right now, I'm just gonna give a shout out to a small market that people don't really talk about. If the Utah Jazz get Cooper Flagg, they've been in NBA Siberia for a couple years now, right? They trade Donovan, they trade Rudy, not in that order, and they candidly they haven't really hit on a draft pick since then, right? But last year, when they were about to extend Larry Markkinen, they were poking around. They were calling Brooklyn about potentially trading for Mikal Bridges, and they were calling Atlanta about potentially trading for DeJounte Murray. And if they got those two guys, there was a scenario, I've written about this, that the Jazz were just going to go all in one fell swoop, extend Larry, trade for those two dudes, and then go to Paul George and say, you really want to go to Philadelphia where you're forming a big three? We got a big four here with you, man. And the Jazz still have all the draft picks and tradable salary with options and non-guarantees and whatever to like get their way into any deal that they want, right? They have all these future picks from Cleveland, all this stuff from Minnesota, and they've picked up a couple other handful of second-round picks and what have you, being third-team trade facilitators like they were in the Luka Doncic trade, like they were in helping Jimmy get to Golden State. So they've got a lot of ammo to do something. I don't think the Jazz are like raring to expedite this thing immediately. But if you get Cooper and all of a sudden now you have, in theory, two all-stars in him and Larry Markkinen, just because, again, when you've shown a card before, you still have it in your hand. Like the fact that they were poking around and willing to start talking about quickly upgrading and trading for guys. I'm not saying they're going to, but if they do, and then particularly if the season starts well, like if Cooper is having some type of Victor type, early showings of, wow, this guy really is impacting things here, and we're going to need to potentially go pursue Chris Paul and trade for De'Aaron Fox next season. Like, I wonder how quickly that could come. Like, does that come this summer? Does it come during the year? That's a very interesting one to me, just because they have so much optionality. Like, if New Orleans and Philly gets it, then you start to think about potential, like, oh, is Zion and Joel, like, are they going to be turning the page from those guys, which would be fascinating in its own right. But I think for Utah, it's the fact that they don't have a Zion or a Joel. So you suddenly introduce Cooper Flagg into that scenario. And also, like, you zoom out too, there's really no team in the West besides Utah who's really even positioned to be tanking next year at all. So what is that? Like, if they're not anymore, then like the West is even more crazy than it's already been. You could say that's an argument to just be more patient and you get Cooper and add another guy, get AJ Dembonsa the next year type of stuff. But I don't know. The Jazz just have so much optionality. They never get talked about with the Rockets and the Thunder and the Nets, really, in this group of teams that could go get any player if they want to. So I just wanted to put that on people's radar.
That's a good one. That's a really, really good one. One I have not thought about at all. That's why you're the People's Insider. My man, Jake Fischer. What are you doing for dinner? You going to a little sushi?
We don't do dinner. We don't do dinner.
We don't do dinner. It's just, what is it? Just a walk in the park? A little coffee? What is it? What's the first date move? I don't even know if it's a first.
I'm going to keep that information close to the vest. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll keep an eye on all of these transactions. Definitely follow the Stein Line and Jake. Their Substack's awesome. And follow him on Bleacher Report and on Twitter, X, and Threads as well.
Appreciate it.